My name is Susan Foley, co-founder and executive director of HESA, a nonprofit that was formed for awareness, research, and support of people with autoimmune encephalitis. Today, we will be interviewing a young lady that was diagnosed during her teenage years with autoimmune encephalitis. Her name is Maddy Boehme. We will discuss the journey and struggle of getting her diagnosis and treatments. Good afternoon, Maddy. We
Hi,
really
Susan.
appreciate that you are willing to share your experience with us.
Yes, of course. I'm always happy to share.
Well, you've been a great advocate, that's for sure. Maddy also is vice president of our nonprofit HESA. So we are really excited to have her, and we're really excited to have her in HESA also. So, Maddy, let's start out with, how old were you when you were first diagnosed?
I was 16 years old.
You're 16. How long were you sick before that?
So I would say it took about 6 months, like half a year-ish, roughly, give or take. I don't remember exactly, but I feel like that is very fortunate because a lot of people go, I know with Hashimoto's encephalopathy specifically, a lot of people go several years before they get a diagnosis or figure out what's going on.
Yeah, actually 6 months is rather quick
Yeah,
to get a
I
diagnosis.
feel so lucky.
Yeah. Because if you don't get that treatment right away, it just can cause so much damage.
Yes.
So what did you go through to get that diagnosis? What was your journey like?
Yeah, like most people with HE, I went to several different doctors trying to figure out what was going on with me. Basically, like what had happened as I started to have these really weird seizure-like episodes where I would lose the ability to like walk and talk. And they kept getting progressively worse and more severe. And I started to have more issues like extreme insomnia and like memory problems, issues in school. At one point, like I couldn't read, like I had to cover up text in order to be able to read because my brain didn't focus, like things I had never struggled with before. And so it was kind of like, you know, what's going on? Why, why are all these things happening? Yeah, I went to several different neurologists. I got a lot of well, she's a teenager and she's stressed and she's a high achiever and they just put so much pressure on themselves. And I basically got tired of going to the doctor and just getting no answers. And I wanted to give up, but my wonderful mother, which I know that you got to meet her too, and she shared a little bit of her perspective on my story. The neurologist that diagnosed me, I did not want to go to the appointment and she made me go. So I definitely owe her
Good
for
old
that big
mom.
time. Cause if she would have just let me not go, because I was just sick and tired of going to appointments, I never would have been diagnosed. So yeah, it was just, nobody really could figure out. And, yeah, it was, you know, she's stressed, it's psychiatric, it's, you know, that kind of thing. And, yeah, then this doctor was able to, figure out, he's like, yeah, you have Hashimoto's encephalopathy and you need to like get to the hospital immediately and we're going to start you on treatment and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't know what that was. I had never heard of encephalopathy or encephalitis. So I was really excited to have an answer. And then you go on Google and you Google what encephalitis is and you're like, oh, this is bad. So yeah,
by
that was
the
my
time you were
journey.
diagnosed, at least there was some information on Google.
Yes, more than when you
compared
were
to
diagnosed.
yeah,
Yeah.
compared to us old ones that went on there and tried to Google it. Maddy, what did your doctor do to finally get an answer and diagnose you? What kind of tests did he do?
Yeah, so it was obviously like Hashimoto's encephalopathy is a diagnosis of exclusion. So they obviously ruled out like tumors, cancer, whatever else it could possibly be. We ruled out psychiatric stuff. I had a lot of psychological testing and that kind of thing. And the therapists were like, this is a physical problem. This is not a psychiatric problem. The one, I believe it was like the thing that gave him a clue as to the direction of diagnosis is he tested like my TPO and TG antibodies, and they were extremely elevated, not like in the thousands or whatever, but they were, I think, if I remember correctly, like the highest they've ever been were in like the 800s or something crazy like that. Just not normal. And I wasn't having, thyroid symptoms. I was having all these neurological symptoms. So it was kind of like, it's a case diagnosis. So it was kind of like 2 + 2 = 4. Like I did like some EEGs, sleep studies. The sleep studies that I had done basically showed like I don't go into stage 3 or 4 sleep, which was also another kind of abnormality that was like there's something neurological going on. Yeah, and I think I had MRI. My MRI was normal. I had some special type of scan that kind of helped, that was kind of like abnormal too, that I don't remember specifically what it was called, but basically based on all these pieces of evidence, he said, I think you have Hashimoto's encephalopathy. So
and I'm skipping ahead here, but recently you also had a PET scan done, right?
yes. So yeah, that was something that was not even, so it was 2014 when I was diagnosed. That's like the cool and not so cool thing about being diagnosed is that like I live in a time where the disease is in existence, but the research is not super great on it. So as research has progressed, as I've been diagnosed, they've been finding, PET scan of the brain can be useful. And so that's something very recently that I had done last year. And that was helpful too in solidifying like, yes, this is what's going on, and showing like hypometabolism and things like that, to again confirm diagnosis. So
yeah, I think that's going to become, I hope anyway, a big part of diagnosing patients.
yeah.
Having a PET scan done, it's just so hard to get insurance to pay for it. That's the number one thing. I think doctors hesitate. That's just my opinion. So Maddy, how did you feel during this time? What were your personal feelings?
I just like, it's hard to go through a major medical thing at a very young age. It was really hard to watch all of my classmates kind of go about their lives while I was in the middle of kind of dealing with the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life, trying to figure out what was going on because of these seizure-like events that I was having and the difficulties I was having in school. I was not in school very often. And ever since I've been sick, I haven't been able to attend school full time. I've tried several times, but I physically and mentally cannot handle it. So that's frustrating as well. Because I'm young and everybody my age is out going and living their lives and having careers and starting families. And I feel sort of like left in the dust. Like everybody, the world kind of goes on without you. And not anybody's fault, but when you're not at school, people just kind of forget about you. And not being in good shape and going to doctor's appointments and things like that. They just kind of quit, asking me to hang out because I often couldn't hang out. And so it's very lonely.
That has to be so hard. I can't imagine being a teenage girl and not only being sick, that's one thing, but feeling like you don't belong with the rest of your friends anymore, or that the friends are, like you said, they're going on and doing the things that teenagers do, and you're stuck and you're not able to join them. I just feel sick about that for anybody that's goes through a diagnosis process of any type of rare disease when they're teenagers. It's just a rough situation. How old are you now, Maddy? Not to
Yeah, I just turned 24 a few months ago. So I have been dealing with this for 7, almost 8 years, which is like, holy cow, it's been that long.
Feels like forever, hey?
Yeah, even for I still deal with that in terms of, like I said, what a normal 24-year-old is doing right now, having a career or starting a family or things like that. I still live at home with my parents because I still deal with the seizure-like spells, and I'm in the middle of some treatment right now too. So I'm unable to live on my own. I have never been able to work full time. So I don't know if I can support myself on my own. Just a lot of, I don't know, it's been stressing me out recently. Just trying to figure out, like how am I gonna support myself? Just how am I gonna do life, because it's affected me at such a young age. Like a lot of people, if they develop health issues down the road, they're already married, so they have a spouse to support them, or they've lived on their own, they have a house, they have had a career. So it's just a lot of things that normal 24-year-olds don't have to worry about.
Well, you're at a very vulnerable age where there's such a change in people's lives as they become an adult, that in fact that brings up the other subject I was going to ask you is, was there an issue going from pediatric care to adult care for an encephalitis? How did that go?
Yeah, so that was another unforeseen challenge of being diagnosed with Hashimoto's encephalopathy, because as you know, it's a somewhat controversial diagnosis. So the first adult neurologist I went to see, he was like, oh, like, I don't use those drugs that way, like, we're gonna do it my way, and not, he basically like didn't follow the protocol for autoimmune encephalitis, and I ended up relapsing and back at the children's hospital because my adult neurologist who had just was like, I can't help you. So which is disappointing. And then my second neurologist just didn't agree with the diagnosis. He felt that I had functional neurological disorder and slowly wanted to wean me off of all my medications. So And I know that's a something that's often thrown around too with HE is the functional neurological disorder. And it's not that I wasn't, open to the fact that it could be something else, but it was more or less like I'm a very logical person, so I process things logically. And, I've had these treatments and they're the thing that's given me my life back. So he wants to take away the things that have given me some of my life back. And in my logical brain, I'm like, I don't agree with functional neurological disorder because I respond to treatment. I've had treatment and it's helped me. So
that had to be so scary. I mean, when
yeah,
somebody takes away something that's been working.
It's very scary. And he basically I'm on prednisone, and he started to taper me on my prednisone. And as I went down on my prednisone, I started to have run into problems. My insomnia got significantly worse. And I started to have like these seizure-like events happen again, which those were my first symptoms before I was diagnosed. But I was just told that I need to push through it and try harder. Which just in my mind, I was like, I was doing everything that I could to try to get off of my steroids and to try to do what my doctor was telling me, and it wasn't working.
I don't know anybody that wants to be on steroids.
No,
I mean,
that's
that
what I was trying to
that...
tell him too, is I'm like, I want off of these drugs. Like I sincerely want off of this medication, but I don't use the word can't lightly, but I said lightly, sorry. But I told him, I'm like, I can't get off of them. Like I'm having more insomnia, like my insomnia is getting worse. I'm having these seizure-like events. Like these were my first symptoms. Like something isn't right. So I eventually just basically broke up with my my neurologist because obviously I was not having luck following his suggestions to just tough it out and keep going and keep trying.
Well, I think you were smart to realize that it wasn't going to work and not sticking it out any longer than you had to.
Well, my insomnia got so bad to the point where I wasn't sleeping, or I was sleeping like 2 or 3 hours a night, and I was miserable like every single night. And I went like a month trying to live like that. And I eventually was just like, this is not working. I need to find a better neurologist.
And I heard that through the grapevine that you did find somebody else. And,
yes.
You are now traveling to New York City to get treatment from Iowa.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I live in Iowa. And basically I'm just like, you know what, I'm not messing around anymore. We're going straight to where the experts are, where the people that are up to date with research on this disease are. And yeah, I was very fortunate to find a wonderful neurologist who was like, no wonder you can't get off your steroids. And yeah, that makes sense why you can't sleep. Like someone that speaks my language. Yay, finally. So basically now I'm working with her. She put me on way more aggressive treatment because ever since I've been an adult, I have not been on enough treatment. Basically, so I spent about 5 years on improper treatment, not enough treatment. So there's some obviously, when your disease isn't being treated right for 5 years, you're gonna have to we're picking up the pieces right now, trying to undo all of the mess that's been made. So
what are the names of the treatments, Maddy, that she's giving you?
Yeah,
I mean, that's very interesting because so many people, so many doctors aren't aggressive to treat. And I think people need to know what some of the treatments are.
Yeah, and I feel very fortunate too to have a doctor who's not afraid to get aggressive, because this disease needs to be treated aggressively. So I'm still on steroids, working on tapering off of them. I get IVIG every 2 weeks. I get Actemra now, or it's also called tocilizumab. I get that once a month. And then I also am doing rituximab, and I get that every 6 months. So yeah, the goal of adding the Actemra and rituximab is to be able to successfully get off of my steroids. So.
And those are heavy hitters. Those are definitely heavy hitters. And I just feel that, well, we both know this, that everybody's treatment plan is different. Everybody reacts different to the drugs. Everybody, I myself can get along pretty well with IVIG and Imurin, but not everybody can. And I think, just in my own opinion, that you going so long without the proper treatment puts you in a whole different category of needing the heavy duty.
The first appointment that I had with this neurologist, she told me it's going to be a long and slow process, but we're going to do it together. Like we're in this together. So that was really sweet. But yeah, that's definitely what I am dealing with now, is realizing that it's going to be a very slow and steady improvement, and not just like, I can pop a pill and make it all better. That's not how it works, unfortunately. So.
No, not for encephalitis of any type, actually.
No, yeah.
Maddy, how do you think you having this disease affects your family, your mom and dad, your siblings?
Yeah, so it definitely, it affects the whole family, not just me, obviously, and all the, symptoms and stuff I experience. But I know both of my siblings they've seen like a lot of traumatic things with me, and both of my siblings are very they care about me a lot, so that's very hard for them to watch me go through. And yeah, my mom and my dad, obviously it's hard for them to watch their kids suffer, and I don't know how many times my mom and dad have told me, like, I wish I could trade places with you. I would take it all away from you if I could. Yeah, because no parent wants to see their baby suffer. And yeah, just I know, like, especially for my mom, because she was the one who, she knew something was wrong with her baby, and she's seen she's been there to witness everything. She goes with me to appointments and stuff like that. And so I feel, out of everyone in our family, she has been the most affected, because she's seen the worst that there is. So,
and I think a mom experiencing that with their child is so hard.
mm-hmm.
I cannot imagine that feeling of, especially when you were undiagnosed and knowing there's something wrong and nobody's listening. And
yeah,
that's the worst.
She would always say that her mama bear gut just was like, knows something is wrong. And I believe in that parents know, especially the mother. I feel there's a special bond with the mother and her children, and that they just know that mama bear gut is important. And so
that instinct. Yeah. I agree.
I can't I can't, I don't know. I love my mom so much, and she means the world to me. And I wish I could give her the world for, she's just been with me every step of the way. And she's never, all the times that I felt crazy or just felt like, it's all in my head or whatever, she is just like, you're not crazy. It's not in your head, and yeah.
Maddy,
She's wonderful.
this is probably a really difficult question, but do you ever feel like you just want to give up?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I feel like if you've gone through this disease and haven't felt like that at least once, then there is like something psychologically wrong. Because it's very, I would not wish any of this even on my worst enemy. It's different. Brain diseases are different. Like it's a different level, it's a different category. Because it's not just like, oh, my arm is broken, but I can still, I'm still
And people
with
can
the
see a
world.
broken arm.
Yeah, and that too. It's invisible. Not very many people understand what having your brain messed with is like. It's a very unique experience, which is it's very lonely. It's so hard to, I know I've just felt very hopeless at times, with doctors, with that neurologist who was like, you just need to try harder. I remember crying to him at one appointment because I was like, I'm not kidding you. Like, I don't know how to explain to you what's going on in my head, but I can't. Like, so,
And that's the hard part about having a neurological disease, is that you can't express because you can't get those thoughts organized enough to speak them. And half the time, well, I don't really remember if you've had that, but like for me, my words don't come out right. So what I'm thinking and what comes out of my mouth is not the same. So you have this doctor sitting there and he's looking at you and you're trying to explain how you feel and you just cannot do it.
Yeah. And I feel, I know there was one doctor who told me like I couldn't possibly have Hashimoto's encephalopathy because I wouldn't be sitting at this appointment talking to her. I would be in a coma.
I had that once too. Yep.
And that's when I was like, all right, well, see ya. Because anybody that truly understands this disease is that you're not always in a coma. That's the most severe end of the spectrum. But that's not what encephalitis looks like anymore as we're researching and stuff. And people, I feel like doctors have that very textbook idea of encephalitis, like coma, and you go crazy in 3 days and blah, blah, blah. But that's not the case all the time. So,
and I think another thing they don't understand, Maddy, is that people do relapse. I have had my own neurologist that I had started new, which I think you remember the story, saying to me that once you are in a sort of a remission, you're never really in a remission, I don't feel, but that you stay there. And I'm like that. And I was in a relapse and I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. And
and that's
so much that needs.
You're working. So the brain itself is such a complex organ. And first of all, we have only scratched the surface of our understanding of the brain. Second of all, you're dealing with humans. Everyone is different. Everybody responds differently, especially again, with a brain disease. Not everybody's symptoms are going to be the same. Not everybody is going to respond the same to treatments. And yeah, autoimmune encephalitis, some people, get steroids and they're, cured and it never comes back. And some people have tried every treatment in the book and they still are not doing well. And that's how it is. Yeah, I don't know. I just sometimes wish that I feel like doctors sometimes get so wrapped up in the textbook side of the disease that they forget about the patient, the human part of the disease. Yeah, and the thing is, it's not textbooks that define humans, it's humans that define the textbooks. So it sometimes frustrates me because I feel like we have sort of lost the human element in medicine. But
Maddy, do you have a working knowledge of how autoimmune encephalitis works?
Yes, mostly because obviously I'm vice president of HESA, so I watch a lot of doctors speak, and I am very familiar and up to date with a lot of like the literature and stuff. So yes, so I've had people say that they feel like sometimes I probably know more than half of the doctors I've seen, which sometimes I feel that way, but just because I've watched so many experts speak about it. And I also just have I think it's a very fascinating disease. So I just have obviously I have a personal interest in it because I have the disease myself, but I just find it really interesting. So
if you were to give a very brief description of what autoimmune encephalitis is, what would you say?
Basically, autoimmune encephalitis is where one day, for some unknown reason, the body mistakenly decides that the brain is, a foreign object or a bad thing, and it starts attacking the brain, producing cells against the brain. And then this causes inflammation in the brain, which then causes a lot of neurological and psychiatric symptoms.
Yeah, you got that just about right.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just because if you give anybody the big definition,
yeah,
it's too hard to understand.
Yeah, it gets a lot more complex than that, but it's the body attacks the brain, if you want to put it real simple, real basic.
Yeah, your immune system is, just decides to attack the brain. And there are a lot of different autoimmune encephalitises, as we both know. It's like an umbrella, which we're just one small spoke of that umbrella. But we both know we're probably the rarest form and the least understood and the least researched. And definitely we're trying to change that, partly by doing these videos with people like you. And Maddy, if you were going to give people one statement, how your life is and what to expect with autoimmune encephalitis, how to handle it, what would you say?
I would say
run for the hills. No.
some days I would say I would give two words for my experience with autoimmune encephalitis, and I would say it's changed perspective. Now, to further elaborate on that, it will change your perspective, but some of it is not a choice. Obviously, I can't control what my body attacking my brain and the symptoms and side effects that come with that. But I do have a choice in how I respond and how I continue to go about my life. And I'm not trying to say, well, just everything is all hunky-dory, and it's great because it's not. It's really frustrating some days, but the yeah, it changes your perspective, but it's up to you whether that perspective is changed for better or worse.
And for you, you have found, I know you want more of a purpose, but you found a purpose working with other people that have autoimmune encephalitis. And that in itself is fulfilling, I believe, for you, correct?
Yeah, and also just being able to talk to other people with this disease makes you feel less lonely and less crazy.
I agree with you.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy, and so being able to help other people going through this really traumatic experience and difficult disease is so rewarding. I know you know that.
Yeah, I do.
You know, it's my experience with HESA has been really cool because basically like how I got involved is my mom bought your guys' book. And that changed her perspective and understanding of the disease. And you know, me reading the book too, you know, so many things that I was like, why can I control this? Why am I this way? I understood it's not in my control, it's not my fault. And then yeah, being able to be more involved and help educate doctors and help other people get diagnosed and get help and get treatment. Yeah, it's beyond rewarding. And I yeah, like I said, I know you know that, but
Well, in my own, yes, I absolutely, it has kept me sane.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's
it
what
gives you a purpose in life. It really does.
It's made all, it's kind of like, you know, like I can't control all the bad things that have happened in life, but I've been able to like make something good out of it. So it doesn't feel like it's a waste of suffering or yeah.
I agree. I agree 100%. Well, Maddy, as I close, I just want to thank you again for being such a great spokesperson for HESA. You always have been, and you always will be. And I really appreciate you sitting down with me this afternoon and talking and letting people see what it is like to experience having a rare disease. And in this situation, rare disease, that there's not a lot known about it, where there needs to be research, but that's another subject.
Yes,
but
I agree.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I feel like we're at the bottom of the mountain, the autoimmune encephalitis mountain. We're going up the mountain, but some days it feels slower than others. So
it definitely agree. But I want to thank you again. And I want to say, take care.
Yes, thank you. It's always good to talk to you.
You too. Bye, Maddy.
Bye.